Hey everybody, welcome back. So welcome to the Reconnection space. This is the space where we have been talking all things reconnection. Reconnection with ourselves, reconnection with our relationships, with the world around us, with our universe. And as you know, I have been hunting down fabulous guests to talk about their reconnection moments, and today is no exception. So you will see I do have a fabulous guest here. She's looking gorgeous. What I will say is we are melting in the heat here. I know, so if we do a lot of this and a lot of zhushin, that is because it is hotter than a hot thing on a hot day, and we are melting here. But we have got, I know that's what we need to do. Just get a full one and tip it over ourselves. We've got the amazing Sophie here, and Sophie is going to be sharing with us the journey that is Sophie Garner. So Sophie, I know Sophie through social media. We have spoken in person for all of 2 minutes before this recording, so I'm really excited to hear this story, which is amazing. I know Sophie as somebody who helps people do one thing that I would love to do, and that I do in private, and that is, of course, to sing. Which I have skill envy of people that sing, and I have happy memories of having the hairbrush and thinking I'm part of the Nolans, you know, with my mum's vinyl in the bedroom. And that was my dream, but sadly the skill was not there. My dream was not to be, but Sophie has been helping people, but there's so much more to Sophie. So welcome, Sophie.
Hello. Sorry, I'm just going to do it. There's no water, but
I know. Cool yourself down. My goodness.
The placebo effect of doing that. Look, just pretend. There we go.
Just pretend. It just makes you feel cool enough.
We're not being vain. Ali and I are not being vain.
No, quite the opposite, actually. Quite the opposite. We're just trying to not self-combust, I think, in our respective offices. So, Sophie,
here we are.
Tell everyone in your own words, what is it that you do? This fabulous thing that you do.
Gosh. Okay. So I sing professionally. I have done for 25 years. I started teaching singing 15 years ago at a very basic level. So, you know, it was, you're coming to learn to sing. That's all wonderful, but it's gone so much deeper than that. And I'm now using singing as a tool for encouraging children with learning difficulties, adults that have got no confidence, women that want to rediscover who they are in some creative way. So singing is so much bigger than just learning to sing.
And you know, I sing in private. I love to sing, and I totally get that feeling you get when you're in the car, generally singing.
Sorry,
singing
just coming past.
Hey, Kat. Singing loud and proud, you know, and it's a release, isn't it? You know, that's the feeling I get, is a release.
Yeah, endorphins. The science to prove what singing does for us on a multitude of levels is you can just type in anything on Google Scholar and it will come up with so much for helping lung issues, improving your memory, mental health. It's being used now actually through clinics as a rehab tool, which is amazing, and it's free.
Yes,
everybody can sing. I could teach you how to sing.
I may have to take you up on that offer.
Do you think your listeners and watchers would want to see that live in action? Probably we should do that in private.
I probably need to do that in private. Some of my listeners do suffer a little bit from anxiety and stress, and I don't want to put them under undue pressure by listening to me. But they would love to hear you sing. So, Sophie, at the end we're gonna give people a chance to find out how they can get in touch with you, and take take you up on that wonderful gift that you give people. But here on the Reconnection space, we like to hear about your life story. We like to hear about a moment in your life when you had that shift or that transition. And I wondered what came to mind when you thought about that.
There's been so many, but there are two really big standout shifts. One more recently, but which kind of ties into the first big shift. So in 2010, I was in the middle of recording my solo album.
Wow.
And for anybody that doesn't know what that means, it was a self-penned album, all my own material. I'd co-written it with my partner, and we'd invested £50,000 of his money into the album. And right in the middle of recording it, I needed to have a vocal operation.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So you know what's coming. Everything had gone into this album, 2 years of blood, sweat and tears. The songs on the album are an outpouring of everything in your own life as an artist. So it was effectively my baby.
Yeah.
And I started having problems on stage. I couldn't sing what would normally be, second nature. It would be a bit like, I suppose, as you as a psychotherapist. You're a psychotherapist, aren't you?
That's right, yeah.
So for you as a psychotherapist, suddenly just losing your skill to listen to people, it was like that. What was completely natural to me, that's completely natural to you, was being taken away from me. And in that instance, it was like a loss of identity.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a singer, you are your voice, if that makes sense. So as an instrument, where a guitarist takes an instrument and it's external, with a singer, we are our own voice. So everything that I could do so naturally suddenly was becoming like a disability. And I had a vocal operation, and I had to relearn to sing again.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a week of required total silence. So part of my recovery rehabilitation was not being able to talk at all for a week, which was an amazingly spiritual place to be, because it was an enforced mindfulness. I thought I'd hate it because I love to talk, and actually it was such a great place to be, because I wasn't able to have a conversation. I couldn't answer the phone. Facebook wasn't really a kind of thing at that point in 2010.
Yeah.
So I meditated, I watched films, and I didn't talk. And at the end of that week, it was like, God, I have to talk. And now this is the reality. I'm out of the bubble, and I now have to go back to normal life. And it was a weird thing. I actually didn't want to. I really enjoyed that silence, bizarrely. And I think when you're forced to do something, people say, oh, how did you manage? I had no bloody choice.
No.
This is what you have to do to get your voice healed, to go back to singing.
Yeah.
But that's when all the really, really tough stuff started to happen. So I then wasn't allowed to sing for a good 3 months. So I began my real recovery stage. And it was a bit like, having physio on a leg. If David Beckham damaged his leg, he couldn't then go back straight away to being on the football pitch. I was the same. So I was singing nursery rhymes and having to say days of the week. I mean, this is just really, really basic stuff. Then eventually I started to go back to gigging, but it was very difficult. And the first gig I did, I'll never forget, it was a wedding, and I got 2/3 of the way into the gig, and I said to the woman, I can't sing anymore. I'm going to have to stop singing on your wedding day. And I was popping tablets because the pain of, not the pain of singing, but the pain of the muscles trying to work.
Yes.
Sing. And I went home in tears, and I just said, this is ridiculous. I sounded awful. It felt awful. Where am I with all of this? And then the recovery was prolonged. So the money that we put aside for the album release and all of the PR side of things, which was 15 grand, went like that on living.
Yeah.
So here I was with this album and no money for PR, and I was being played on radio, BBC Radio. I had one of the top PR companies in the country that was looking after Shirley Bassey. and take that. But at £1,500 a month, the big PR campaign leading was just blown out of the water. So there I was then with this amazing album, and that was it. It was game over. So I was trying to get my voice back, worrying about how we were going to live, and then coupled with the fact that there was no album, I had that moment of, this is it. It's gone. And people were saying, everything's gone. Oh, you know, you can get another job, and you can't. Everything. This is who I am. My voice is my identity. So I went in a very dark place, as you can probably imagine, and that was just another layer. And I mean, I look back now and I go, this was all meant to happen. Universe sent this. I didn't realise it at the time, but after that, I set up a charity. I set up the UK's first and only charity for singers called Voxel. I financed. It's a non-profit making thing, and that was endorsed by the Musicians Benevolent Fund and PRS. PRS is the company that pays all the royalties. And that was a great space for people to come, a nurturing space. So that came from it. I eventually went back to singing properly, which I now do. And I've had to I've gone through all the bitter, twisted, that should have been my time. You know, I got very bitter and it was eating me up. And I had to kind of go, if I don't let this album go, it's going to destroy me. And that made me question what was wrapped up in that album. And of course, there was ego, there was a need to be wanted and discovered. And I was, you know, there was hunger and desperation and fear and all that wrapped up in it. And it's taken a long time to really work through that and let that go. And I can now listen to my album without hate and anger and fear. And my partner,
was almost a grief there, because the album represented a life that you expected you were going to be living, the road that you thought you were going to go down. And like with every grief, with every loss,
absolutely, you've got it in one.
You there is all of those feelings. That is the grief cycle, isn't it? First there's oh my God, denial, you know, this can't be happening to me. Then there's the anger, then there's the bitterness, the why me, you know, and finally you have to find that way of moving forward, of letting it go, you know. And it sounds like letting go of that album just took you through that whole grief cycle.
Absolutely. You're completely spot on. It was a bereavement and a bloody expensive one. Yes. And we listened. It's funny because we listened to it for the first time recently, and I wept. I wept because it is such a beautiful piece of work. And we were playing. It was a band rehearsal with myself and the guitarist, and I said, would you like to listen to some of my own music? Because he said, I really want, you know, what did you do? And I went, okay, let's put it on. And we stood there looking at each other, me and Paul, and he didn't obviously know the depth of that. And he was listening to it and going, oh, this is brilliant, this is brilliant. And I'm just looking at Paul, and we're not saying a word, and we're feeding so much to each other in that moment. And the strength of us to get through that, you know, and that he'd spent that money and his belief in me, and we're together. And despite that, as you say, that grief, we've come through it, and at great expense, you know, emotionally, financially, etc. So we're strong despite it and in spite of it.
What's your learning from that experience?
To let go, to let go of ego and really question what, for me, being a singer is all about.
Right.
And it made me look at other people that come to me when I'm a vocal coach on Maybe's The Voice for the musicians, and I'll be doing that shortly in London, Manchester. And when they're coming to auditioning, and it's, I want to be a singer, there's that core in me that wants to know why And because I've been there and it's made me question why,
Yeah.
now my learning is that I get up and I sing for the pleasure of it, not for an agenda, not for what's going to come out of this. And I think at 45, when I look back, I've been performing professionally for 25 years. At 45 now, I feel like the clone.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel whole and rounded and fulfilled and strong. You know, my goddess energy feels it's here now. And I feel secure within myself. And when I sing now, it comes from a place of not need and hunger.
Yes.
So it's been a massive, massive growth, and just that whole letting go and not going, oh, you know, I need to hold on to everything. Just that, the freedom of just throwing it up to the universe and saying, shit happens. What I couldn't change it. What could I do? I couldn't change it. And there's nothing to be gained by going, oh.
Yeah.
And now when shit happens, I just go.
That's what we say in the Be More world. That's the kind of step of acceptance. It's just acceptance, isn't it? It's acceptance. Doesn't mean you have to like it. Doesn't
Absolutely.
mean you have to look back and say, oh, I see now that was a good thing. You know, it can still be a rubbish thing. You can
Absolutely.
still like it, but you have to accept it, because, as you say, you can't change it. It is what it is.
Yeah,
it's done.
It's truth. Absolutely. And yeah, so that was huge.
So my last question, as always, to my guests on the Reconnection Space, after sharing their story, and that was such an amazing story. And I just want to say, the sound just went a little bit there. So for anyone didn't hear, you are actually now a coach on what TV program? Say that again, loud and proud.
ITV's The Voice Kids.
Brilliant. And who are the judges on that one?
I'm not sure who and what is happening at the moment, because I am only on the auditions.
Got it.
I'm booked. Last year they brought me on board, and it was such a success that they've asked me back now for the London and the Manchester auditions.
Fabulous.
So I'm there to nurture and make the children feel relaxed and positive and confident, which I do in bags.
You're doing the good bit. You're doing the bit that actually gets them in front of the judges on the stage. Yeah, that's the first step. So my question is, Sophie Garner, for you, reconnection means what?
Coming back to self. Coming in and not being without. Coming right back in and reconnecting with your soul energy. That's what it's about for me, because if you're not connected with your own phone line, then how can anyone else communicate with you? If you're not within, then your external is just going to fall apart.
Brilliant. We love that. Coming back to self. We like to capture all of these.
Your own phone line.
Love it. So Sophie, thank you so much for sharing your story here on the Reconnection Space. How can people get in touch with you?
Okay, so my website is sophiegarner.com. That's for all my teaching and work. I also have a band website, which is the-new breed.co.uk.
Fantastic.
And Facebook, and so just my name, Sophie Garner.
Sophie Garner. So Sophie Garner, thank you for being in the Reconnection Space.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you. We hope, everyone, that you've enjoyed another episode of the Reconnection Space here on our own YouTube channel in the world of Be More. If you have enjoyed it, there's a really important step that will help us spread the word, and that's clicking the like and then the subscribe button. Now, we promise we won't bombard you with lots of things. You will just get notified every time we have a new episode with a new fabulous guest. So why not subscribe to the Reconnection Space, and let's get connected. And if you have a story that you think that we would like to hear about, a reconnection moment in your life, then drop us a note, because we are always looking for new people to join us here in the Reconnection space. For the time being, have a mindful and wonderful week. Sending lots of love and blessings from this end. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.